What's up, y'all? My name is JR, and for those of you who don't already know, I'm a huge movie and TV nerd. If you're new here, I appreciate you taking the time to check out my channel. I hope you'll consider sticking around and joining the film community I'm trying to build here on YouTube. So in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the 7th episode in Season 2 of HBO's hit TV show, House of the Dragon. And just so you guys know, this video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't gotten around to watching the episode yet and you don't want to know anything that happens in it, you might want to exit this video now. And with that being said, no more wasting time. Let's get into it. So, the episode starts with Rhaenyra standing on the beach on Driftmark, her dragon Syrax behind her as she beckons Adam of Hull, who stands in front of Seasmoke, declaring that he stands before the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms with the dragon of House Targaryen. Now, Adam explains that he had no design upon it. Rhaenyra asks him what he wants. Adam responds to learn the ways of dragon riding. He then bows and continues, and to serve my queen. Now, Rhaenyra thinks before approaching him, with Syrax following closely behind. Rhaenyra remarks that Adam kneels quickly for a man so suddenly elevated. Adam explains that the dragon came to him. He claims that he has sweated blood in the name of House Valerian, that he may appear lowborn, but that he knows much and more of service, that if the gods call him to greater things, that he should not refuse them. Rhaenyra commands him to stand. She asks Adam of his parentage. He tells her that his mother was a shipwright and that his father is of no importance. Rhaenyra then asks his name and he responds, Adam of Hull. Rhaenyra explains to Adam that he has done something that she feared impossible, but that she is glad of it. She then asks Adam if he can get the dragon to Dragonstone, and he responds, I can try. Now, this was a scene in the season trailer several months back that appeared online, so, we all knew it was coming. Even if you don't know anything of the story that the book tells, I did rather like how it was staged and even how it was paced, though it almost got to a point where it was overwritten, dialogue-wise. But both actors did a really good job with it. It was a fairly simple scene, but an effective way to start off the episode, certainly. Now, from there we go to King's Landing, and we see Alicent with Grand Maester Orwell. He cleans the cut that she got from the rioter last episode, as she claims that all her life she has served both her house and the realm, and that now none of it matters. That people like her are cast aside or hated. Now, Grand Maester Orwell tells her that she will have a scar, but that it will be easily hidden. As the Grand Maester continues cleaning her wound, Alicent notices a rat crawling across the table on the other side of the room, and she remarks, nothing is clean here. And this scene is nothing spectacular. It's just a scene that sets up Alicent's movements for the remainder of the episode. It's interesting that the rioter wounded Alicent on her arm, so now she has a scar in similar proximity to the one she herself gave Rhaenyra last season. A little screenwriter's comma at work there. And the line about nothing being clean in King's Landing, again, is just something that will be used to explain Alicent's doing for the remainder of the episode. So next we see Alicent exit her chambers and approach Sir Rickard, stating that she wants to go out to the Kingswood. Now, Sir Rickard tells Alicent that he will have the stewards prepare a retinue. That's basically a group of people that will accompany, a person of, royal stature. But Alicent tells him that she does not want a retinue or handmaidens, that she just wants him to accompany her, and then she walks away. Now from there, we go to a balcony outside the Red Keep facing the courtyard, and we see Lord Larys and Lord Wyle standing there as Aegon's newly appointed King's Guardsmen are escorted out of the palace, seemingly headed for the Wall, having been accused of starting the riot outside the Grand Sept, the riot that injured the Queen Dowager. Now, Lord Wyle tells Lord Larys that he has received word that Seasmoke has been sighted with a rider. Lord Larys remarks that it is a fine piece of intelligence. He asks Lord Wyle if he now seeks favor with Prince Aemon by delivering it to him. Lord Wyle explains that he is seeking Lord Larys' advice, with Whispers being his province. As Prince Aemon enters the courtyard and the King's Guardsmen are forced to their knees, Lord Larys explains to Lord Wyle that this is his whisper. Lord Wilde remarks to Lord Larys that if he considers the information to be valuable, then perhaps he could deliver it to Prince Aemon and find favor with the prince. Because, he's trying to be hand of the king, claiming he got the pulse of the people. So, Now, as Aemon has the cloaks removed from the kneeling men, Lord Larys asks who Seasmoke's rider is, and Lord Wilde remarks that the answer to that question is unclear, but that it must be Rhaena, as she has wanted a dragon all her own for some time. Now, Lord Larys recalls that she had tried already, and that when she was 4 and 10, or 14, that Seasmoke nearly devoured her. He asks who else it could be. Lord Wilde does not seem to have an answer. Lord Larys asks him where he heard the whisper. Lord Wilde explains that he heard it from his squire, who heard it from a stable hand, who heard it from his father, a fisherman, whose shipmate claims to have seen it. Mad game of telephone. And after thinking for a moment, Lord Larys advises Lord Wilde that he is welcome to take the news to Aemon, but that perhaps this whisper is one better left to the wind. Lord Wilde thinks as the two men are escorted out of the courtyard by men of the Night's Watch. He clears his throat before leaving the balcony. And Aemon, who is still in the courtyard, then turns and looks up at Lord Larys, and he too leaves the balcony. Now, this scene again, nothing super important other than just being something that simply moves the episode towards a bigger plot point, that being Aemon finding out that basically the same thing that Rhaenyra has found out, that Targaryen bastards can indeed ride dragons and claim dragons. So, next we see Jacaerys standing on the balcony on Dragonstone, looking up as his mother and Adam arrive together. And he looks bothered by the sight and then leaves the balcony. Now, in the Grand Hall, the Black Council is apparently set to meet, and we see Lord Corlys and other members of Rhaenyra's council standing near their chairs as Sir Marbrand enters, announcing that the queen is unharmed. Lord Corlys asks who the rider is. Maester Gerardis replies, "He appears to be a shipwright in your employ, Lord Hand." Lord Bartimus explains to Lord Corlys that the lowborn cannot go around seizing dragons. He always got a lot to say. He asks if the thief has been secured. Maester Gerardis explains that Rhaenyra has insisted on him remaining at Dragonstone as a guest, which seems to annoy Jacaerys. Maester Gerardis goes on to explain that Rhaenyra wishes for him to learn the art of dragon riding and that he should also be taught some High Valyrian. Now, Lord Bartimus remarks that they know nothing about the rider except for the fact that he is lowborn. He then asks Corlys for his thoughts on the matter, and Lord Corlys insists that the council must respect the queen's accounting before passing judgment. Jacaerys asks where his mother is. Sir Marbrand responds, "Her Grace sends word that she will not be attending." And at that point, the members of the council begin to sit as Jacaerys seems highly aggravated. Now, in the library, we see why Rhaenyra is not attending, because there she is talking to her girlfriend, Mysaria, about the matter. Now, Mysaria remarks that Rhaenyra is lucky that Adam seeks to serve her and not himself. Rhaenyra claims that Adam must be ordained because Seasmoke chose him. She remarks that he must have Targaryen blood, that the dragon must sense it. Rhaenyra then declares that they will find riders for Vermithor and Silverwing. Now, Mysaria asks Rhaenyra if she trusts Adam. Rhaenyra responds, "What choice do I have? He has a dragon." She goes on to explain that without Adam, she only has Syrax, who may give Aemon a second thought. And look, that's not true, by the way, because Jacaerys has Vermax and Baela has Moondancer, but, whatevs. Now, Rhaenyra begins searching through scrolls that are in the cubbies, claiming that Targaryen blood may have been too thin in Sir Darkland, that they need to find others with a more direct line of breeding. Now, Mysaria laughs at the sight, explaining to Rhaenyra that she would be better off looking under the sheets than in the woodpiles. She goes on to explain that she once worked in a pleasure house where generations of Targaryens had their revels, that there are 80 bastard progenies at least that are known to her, and that there are sure to be more, perhaps even on Dragonstone, the misbegotten offspring of her house. Now, Rhaenyra claims that Mysaria speaks of the lowborn. Mysaria explains that they are as likely to serve her as highborn lords or ladies, perhaps more. Rhaenyra explains that in the highborn house there's an ancient fealty, that there is honor. Mysaria invokes the names of Aegon and Aemon, explaining to her that her own half-brothers are currently waging war against her for her own throne. That's Okay, that's facts, right? she asks if they are bound by such honor. Massaria further explains that a common shipwright vows to serve her while her brothers seek to destroy her. Massaria explains that the order of things has changed and that Rhaenyra should embrace it. Now, Rhaenyra explains that for 20 years, the lords of the realm levied insults at her sons behind her back. She pauses and thinks for a moment before stating, "Let us raise an army of bastards." And look, that was a good line. A great way to get out of the scene. Brilliant one-liner, really. I'm being dead serious. But what Rhaenyra is doing here, as a character, is so supremely stupid that if I didn't already know this was going to happen, I wouldn't have believed it. You can't give a nuclear weapon to people who have nothing to lose. You just can't do it. And the fact that Rhaenyra doesn't know this is just another reason why she shouldn't be in charge of anything. The lords on her council would have explained this to her, but as you can see at this point, she doesn't even talk to them anymore, essentially rendering them useless. And that's bad politics, because I'll say again, Roose Bolton had Robb's back until he proved that nobody could tell him anything. And once that was clear, Roose made his own choices and his own plans. And Robb Stark and most of the Northern Army died at a wedding. I'm just saying. I get it. She doesn't like the fact that men mansplain war to her. But right now, they're on her side. They want her side to win. That's the important thing. And sometimes you have to stroke an ego or two to get what you want. Whether you're a guy or a girl, this is not a gendered thing. That's just how the game goes. But Rhaenyra lacks the want to even play the Game of Thrones. And that's why she's in this mess to begin with. Yes, the lords of Westeros whispered about your son's parentage behind your back. But they only did that because you sought to do what you wanted instead of what had to be done. You put your wants and your needs ahead of those of the realm. And this is the price. So, dear Rhaenyra, stop acting like the lords of the realm did you dirty, like you didn't choose to go make 3 bastard children with a dark-haired white man and then try to usurp the Driftmark throne. It ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun, huh? Anyway, we next find Adam in a room. I'm assuming these will maybe even be his chambers, and he's looking around. Now, Lord Corlys walks in, and Adam immediately bows and says, "My lord." And Corlys remarks, "How you have come up in the world." Adam asks for leave to relinquish his part as a shipwright in Lord Corlys' service, which is immediately granted by him. Corlys then approaches Adam and he looks him over before stating simply, "Well done," and exiting the room. And this was a short scene, but this was a big moment for Adam because, we've seen that he spent much of his life not necessarily wanting his father's approval, but maybe just wanting his father to notice him. And here we see that finally he has his father's attention at least. The well done, in my mind, that Corlys gives him is his way of simply saying, I see you. So next, we see the rivermen of House Tully pulling up on horseback to Harrenhal. Now inside the castle, we find Daemon, meditating or thinking or whatever he's doing. And there's a knock at the door. And it's Sir Simon telling Daemon that Lord Oscar Tully has answered his summons and that he has brought the River Lords with him. Now from there, we see Daemon and Lord Tully in the small hall, with Daemon sitting at the table and Lord Tully standing before him. Now Daemon offers his condolences for the passing of Lord Grover Tully, before congratulating Lord Oscar Tully on his ascension to the head of his house and Lord Paramount of the Riverlands. Lord Oscar remarks that he did nothing. Daemon responds, "Nevertheless, you're here, and that's the important thing." Lord Oscar remarks that Daemon was quick enough to dismiss him before. Daemon explains to Lord Oscar that he had no significance to him back then. He gets up from his chair and he approaches Lord Oscar, telling him that he shall have his great host and that he has a decision to make, that he presumes it is clear to Lord Oscar which is the right one. Now, Lord Oscar explains that he is green in this sort of matter, but that it seems that Daemon has made quite a mess since coming to the Riverlands, countenancing barbarities in the Queen's name. Daemon asks Lord Oscar whose side he's on, and after taking a moment to think, Lord Oscar explains to Daemon that the Riverlands are held together by oaths, that House Tully swore an oath to King Viserys, that they recognize the authority of Queen Rhaenyra and his as king consort. Daemon then smiles and responds, "Good, then we shall go and face your vassals, and you shall call your banners to war." Lord Oscar remarks, "That might be difficult, my king. Damon explains that he was told that the River Lords would come to heel once House Tully had declared their allegiance. Lord Oscar remarks that that may be the case, but it is yet to be seen if they will heed his authority, as young as it is, and that they have another problem, that all the River Lords hate Damon. Damon remarks that he doesn't need their love, that he simply needs their swords. Now at that moment, the doors of the hall swing open, and Sir Simon tells both Damon and Lord Oscar that the River Lords await and that he fears they cannot delay them any longer. Damon exits the room and beckons Lord Oscar to join him. We then see the three men enter the courtyard next to the weirwood tree as the River Lords await. Damon declares, "In the deepest darkness comes dawn, a new Lord, a new beginning. Let us put all the unpleasantness behind us." Lord Oscar then addresses the River Lords. "Be welcome, my lords, and you have my thanks for answering my summons. I know I am not the man my grandsire was, but I hope to begin well and go on from there." Now Damon interrupts. One thing is clear. The Rivermen honor the old ways and abide by tradition. He points at Lord Oscar and remarks, "Here then lies tradition." He goes on to explain that Lord Grover is dead and that Lord Oscar has been raised up in his place. He tells the lords that they have been summoned to Harrenhal to swear fealty to Lord Oscar and as his bannermen answer his call. Lord Derry then asks what that call will be. Damon explains that Lord Oscar, in his wisdom, has pledged both his and all his houses of the Riverlands to him. Lord Piper explains that for generations they have been guided by the judgment of his forebears, but asks why they should now follow someone so young when he would align himself with someone who would desecrate the innocent in order to reach his aims. Sir Willem interrupts, remarking to Lord Oscar that he only did what was necessary and that he now delivers him to the traitor Lord Amos Bracken and his son Sir Raylan. Lord Piper remarks to Sir Willem that the Brackens are no more traitors to their land than he is. Lord Oscar remarks to Lord Piper that he takes to heart his words, and that he agrees that he is young, that he has no love for Daemon Targaryen, that he has dishonored himself and the crown with his comportment in the Riverlands. He then goes on to state that, having so little experience to guide him, that his best course is to defer to the oath his grandsire swore to King Viserys when he named Rhaenyra his heir. That he sees no reason to cast aside loyalty, no matter how loathsome he may find her representative, the prince. Now Daemon interrupts him, reminding Lord Oscar that he is a king, and he warns Lord Oscar to mind his tongue. Lord Oscar approaches Daemon and whispers to him, "Will you have our army or not?" Daemon thinks before he backs away from Lord Oscar with not a word to say. That was interesting. Lord Oscar continues, stating that he, in the end, is a riverman, and that the word of his house stands, even if some people are unworthy of it. He was coming for Daemon quite a lot in this scene. Daemon tells the River Lords that Lord Oscar is bold and that he is perhaps not wrong, that he may have been a touch enthusiastic in pursuing his aims, in that the River Lords should not let his failings keep them from supporting an upright man. Now, Lady Mallister explains to Lord Oscar that they honor the old ways and that the old ways call for justice to be done. Now, Sir Willem claims that justice has been done, that those who bent the knee to the usurper have been brought to heel, and that now the Riverlands can unite before their lord and their king consort. Sir Willem then takes out his sword and lays it upon the ground before bending his knee to Lord Oscar, who takes his hand and accepts him as his vassal. But then right after that, he explains that he is Lord Paramount of all the river houses, and that there is only one answer for the crimes that he, being Sir Willem, had visited upon his neighbors. Now Sir Willem stands and claims that he only did what his grace the king required of him. Lord Oscar remarks to Sir Willem that, though Daemon made clear his base desires, that he did not have to pursue such savagery. He goes on to claim that Sir Willem did what he did because he wanted to. Lord Piper remarks that Lord Oscar speaks truly. Lord Oscar orders a group of nearby soldiers to seize Sir Willem. Sir Willem asks Daemon to command the soldiers to let him go, claiming that he has only served him. Lord Oscar states that if Daemon wishes to show contrition for his acts and prove himself truly deserving of their banners, that he must rectify his grievous error by denouncing Sir Willem's crimes and dispensing justice. Now, as this is happening, Daemon indeed looks distraught, but he quickly draws his sword and approaches Sir Willem, who has now been forced to his knees. Sir Willem calls out Daemon, claiming that he did what he was asked to do, that he has been faithful. Nevertheless, Damon raises his sword above his head and strikes down upon Sir Willem, killing him. Now from there, we see Damon walking through the castle, and at a certain point, he happens upon a goat in the hallway before entering his chambers to find Viserys sitting on the bed, his face half gone, holding his crown, breathing heavily. Damon sits down on the bed beside him, asking, "What is this?" Viserys responds, "I never wanted it. I was right not to. All of the pain it caused. It crushes whoever wears it. You always wanted it, Damon. Do you want it still?" And this group of scenes was certainly interesting from the standpoint that we see that Damon has indeed been deeply impacted by all the fever dreams he's been having since arriving at Harrenhal. And it feels like over time he has maybe changed a bit because of them. Like, he may realize that he wasn't there for his brother during his time of need, that he used Rhaenyra mostly to get his brother's attention, and that his wanting the crown was simply about validation, maybe even the validation he did not get from his mother as a child, but that now his mind may be changing about what it is he wants and what he's willing to do in order to have it, which I think, despite the sheer volume of the fever dreams we've been made to sit through this season, is somewhat of a worthwhile cause, so long as the writers pay it off correctly and have Damon rejoin Rhaenyra in her fight for the throne. Even though I'm not Team Black, but I do think that that's the right move for his particular character development. And I'm assuming that that's where we're headed in this whole situation. Now, next we find Aegon in his chambers with Grand Maester Orwell struggling to walk with a cane. The cane eventually breaks and Aegon falls down, claiming that he can't go on as Grand Maester Orwell apologizes for the king's circumstances. Just then, Lord Larys knocks on the door, and hearing Aegon's screams coming from the inside, he enters to find Grand Maester Orwell helping Aegon up off the floor. And seeing the sight, he comments, "You really ought not to be doing that alone, Grand Maester." Now, Lord Larys enters the room, and he helps Grand Maester Orwell get Aegon back into bed as he screams in agony. Lord Larys says to Aegon, "Your progress is impressive, but I'm afraid you must work harder. Your strength will return, and that there are adjustments to the gate and so forth that you will learn now that you are as you are." He then walks away from the bed with Grand Maester Orwell, telling him that he should be more cautious. Grand Maester Orwell tells Lord Larys that he should, and that Aegon needs rest, that he should be abed, but that he pushes Aegon on his instruction, his meaning Lord Larys's. Now, Lord Larys tells Grand Maester Orwell that he will have a sentry give him more warning next time. He then tells Grand Maester Orwell to have him walk again in a few hours. Grand Maester Orwell tells Lord Larys that the king is spent. Lord Larys tells him that it will be long before Aegon may rest again, and then he exits the room. And here we see that Lord Larys is trying mightily to save Aegon's life in more ways than one, which tells me that he doesn't exactly like the idea of Aemon being in charge in the long term. Not that Aegon is necessarily a better ruler, but with Aemon seemingly unimpressed by Sir Lord Larys, I think he sees Aegon as the king who will advance his particular cause, at least for now. Anyway, next we see Alan at the port of Driftmark preparing to depart. Corlys approaches him, calling out to him before the two move away from the ship to have a more private conversation. Now, Corlys tells Alan that he has a task that needs his personal attention. He tells him that the Queen requires ships at her service in King's Landing. He tells him to charter fishing vessels and to pay whatever they demand, but that he should make sure that their captains are dependable. He tells him to put trusted swords aboard and to have them wait just outside the harbor, and that there will be a message to carry to one she will name. Corlys then explains to Alan that the Queen has found a new rider for one of her dragons. Alan explains that he's heard tale of it. Corlys goes on to explain that the rider is Alan's brother, Adam, which seems to shock him. He goes on to explain that now Rhaenyra makes the call for others. He tells Alan that their people are of old Valyria, but that they are not dragon lords. He then confesses to Alan that he knew little of his mother's heritage and that he wonders if it's something in the blood. Now, Alan explains that his brother Adam was ever restless, yearning for some sign of worth, but that he is of salt and sea, that he yearns for nothing else. And at that point, Corlys sends him back to work. So what the writers have decided to do here is to have Adam's ability to ride a dragon be due to his mother's blood, since we all know that though the Valerians are indeed Valyrian, that they are not dragon lords, as Corlys has stated. And Laenor and Laena could ride dragons because their mother was Targaryen. But a lot of the chatter that has been going on about how the show would make sense of Adam being able to claim sea smoke, especially since his brother doesn't seem to have the same ability, or at least the same want. So I guess the writers will just blame this on the fact that none of us really knows who their mother is, that she must be Targaryen or somehow distantly related to a Targaryen. That way, none of us can really question it. And to that, I'll just say, okay. I mean, I've done that before where you kind of go, well, I'm going to let this character be ambiguous, and then that way nobody can really question me about what I decide to do with said character or how said character will impact the plot or other characters in the story. So, I mean, it's kind of a writer's cop-out, but, I'm not going to kill them over this. I think it was a little sloppy, but, I'm not going to eat their lunch over this. And as it pertains to the little mini speech we get from Alan about him being Salton Sea, remember Baela said to Corlys the exact same words when he offered her the Driftmark throne a few episodes back, that she is ever restless and that the next Lord of the Tides needs to be of Salton Sea. So there's proof, I guess, that the show is going to go with what happened in the books, and Alan of Hull will become, indeed, Alan Valerian, the next Lord of the Tides. So from there, we see Rhaena leaving the Eyrie on foot as Rhaenyra's small children are well out in front of her on a cart being tended to by handmaids and guarded by soldiers. Now, Rhaena looks back at a completely unbothered, mind you, Lady Jane, who shuts the outer gate to the Eyrie and returns to the castle. Now, at that point, Rhaena runs back to the place where she last saw the charred bones of all the sheep. She examines the spot, and she seems to be continuing her search, completely separate from the party walking in front of her with Rhaenyra's children. And this is the writers continuing on the path to have Rhaenyra eventually find and claim Sheep Stealer. And all I have to say about that is, I wonder how this will affect the plot of the show moving forward. I always tell you guys, when you change one thing, it changes everything. A script is kind of like a tight ball of yarn. In order to pull at a thread, you basically have to undo the entire ball to that point and then wrap it again. So when the writers of the show decide to change something that was in the books, it has a sort of butterfly effect, impacting the choice of the characters in the future, or at the very least changing how the decisions of those characters are viewed by the audience. This change, of course, completely erases Nettles from this story. And spoiler alert, in the books, from what I understand, Nettles and Daemon maybe had a thing. So I would assume that that's not where the writers are going here. And so I'll just say, for now, I hope they know what they're doing. So next we see Alicent alone on horseback in the Kingswood. So Rickard is nearby, and he's made a camp and is preparing food. Alicent arrives at said camp, ties her horse to a tree, and tells Sir Rickard that she will retire to her tent. Sir Rickard then asks if she means to return to the city, or when she means to return to the city, And Alicent tells him that she is not yet certain that she intends to return at all, and then she enters the tent. So here we simply see that Alicent's response to being taken off the Green Council is to go and pout in the woods. And I have to say, I don't really like what the writers are doing with Alicent's character here. I've been really disappointed with her character this season. And I know they're trying to make this contrast clearly between her and Rhaenyra, but by doing so, they're ruining the very thing that make this story so compelling, and they're turning it into a much more basic tale of supposed good versus evil. And if I'm being honest, that isn't at all what I signed up for. Now, from there, we see Rhaenyra and Jacaerys in the Dragonstone Library. And Jacaerys asks, the lowborn claiming dragons, was it her idea? Lady Massaria? Rhaenyra remarks that Jacaerys was enthusiastic enough when Sir Steffon made his claim. Jacaerys explains that Sir Steffon was Lord Commander of Rhaenyra's Queensguard, heir to the Dunfort. He goes on to say that the lowborn are mongrels. Damn, buddy. He turns and walks away, but his mother calls out to him. She asks him to think what is at stake. He remarks that he knows what is at stake. He goes on to state that House Targaryen is the blood of the dragon, and if any may lay claim to it, what are we then? Rhaenyra replies, the rightful rulers of the seven kingdoms. Jacaerys asks, and what if one of your base-born silver-haired dragon riders decides he wants to rule the seven kingdoms? I want you to keep in mind that got said. That's going to be important. Did the conqueror's dream foretell that? Rhaenyra replies, what else would you have me do? Prosecute a war which we will lose, in which thousands will die, or fly against Vhagar myself? Or perhaps you will fly against her on Vermax. Rhaenyra goes on to tell Jacaerys that with the dragon seeds they can end a needless war, that she may take her rightful place on her father's throne. Jacaerys then asks, and when you die? Rhaenyra reassures Jacaerys that he is her heir. After that, there is a brief silence. Now, Jacaerys thinks before asking, did you think I would have dark hair? When you took Harwin Strong to your bed, did you think I might favor him, or did it not cross your mind? He goes on to tell his mother that he is no fool, that the proof is there for all to see, but that he might have argued his legitimacy to succeed her because he had a dragon. But now she would strip that from him too. Rhaenyra stands and she approaches him, telling Jacaerys that she mislikes all of this. Jacaerys replies, then don't pursue it. Rhaenyra replies, but I cannot gainsay that which the gods have laid before me. Jacaerys is brought to tears before he turns and leaves the room. Now, I got to say, this was one of the better scenes in this episode. One where Jacaerys finally stands up to his mother about the fact that she has essentially, forfeited her counsel and decided to make war with only Mysaria by her side. And therein lies the rub, right? I think that once you forego your counsel, the lords that you have chosen to sit with and strategize with you, you've already lost the war. Say what you will about Aemon, at least he still has, people at his table that he meets with on a regular basis, as shaky as the legs on that table may be. And this also, I'll say again, gives people at your table a reason to switch sides. I keep reiterating that. Rhaenyra is a horrible politician. Absolutely horrible. Plain and simple. I don't know how else to say it. Now, as for Jacaerys and his parentage, he makes a really strong point. I see what I did there. I didn't mean to do that, but that's kind of funny. That he is the product of yet another one of his mother's whims. She wants what she wants, and she doesn't really care who it impacts. That she has done to him exactly what Viserys did to her. She has made it infinitely harder for her son to succeed her, should she even manage to win this war. The sons she spent her entire adult life protecting from the quiet slander so that they might one day rule in one fell swoop, she let Mysaria convince her to throw all of that away. And again, I'll say, Rhaenyra Targaryen, this is the price you pay, for your laissez-faire attitude and the way that you approach being the first woman that was supposed to sit the Iron Throne. You didn't take it seriously when you had the chance to make all of this easier, and now here you are. And again, for those of you who know this story, then you know this particular decision, this one right here, will end up costing Rhaenyra dearly, quite dearly before this war is done. Anyway, next we see Mysaria walk into the Great Hall and hand Alan a scroll of paper, telling him to do what he must to see that it finds her. Now, Alan leaves the hall and he hands the scroll to a man on the beach, who then gets on a boat and eventually enters the gates of King's Landing with a basket of fish, ultimately handing the scroll to Lady Alinda Massey, who reads the message before burning it. Now, Lady Massey then moves throughout town, hooded and discreet. I mean, the hood is red, though, so I don't know. Whispering to a handmaid and then to an armorer. From there, she moves on to find a gold cloak and she whispers to him as well. And, this is just your basic transitional set of scenes. No dialogue, just short scenes meant to convey a passage of time and a task being completed, a compound task being completed. That's it. So, from there, we see Ulf the White sitting in his tavern with a few of his homies. One of them, Muja, I don't know if I'm saying that person's name right, but telling him that Rhaenyra is looking for Targaryen bastards to go to Dragonstone, that the boats leave on the hour of the bat. Now, Ulf doesn't believe the story, but Muja assures him that the queen's own handmaid is in town spreading the word. Ulf claims that he would have been first in line if not for his injury. Ulf be selling them wolf tickets, boy. Clay responds, "Are you touched?" He's saying that you can claim a dragon. Now, Muja goes on to tell Ulf that the barkeep from the Seven Maesters is going, as well as the two girls from Mothers, that this would be the chance to stick it to Aemon and claim a dragon. Ulf claims that he understands the opportunity, but that he can't be sure that all that he has heard about his parentage is true. Muja then asks if he's been drinking at the expense of all the good people of King's Landing for fiction. They tell Ulf that the people won't be happy, that he'll never live it down. They then loudly proclaim Ulf a dragon lord and demand more wine as people in the tavern all cheer and raise their cups in his honor. And next we see Hugh in his home with Kat, his wife, begging him not to leave. He tells her that he has to go. Kat tells him that they can go to her brother in Tumbledon, that he will have food and that Hugh can find work there. Hugh explains to Kat that he can't ignore the opportunity. He goes on to tell Kat that he never knew his father, but that he did know his mother. He tells Kat that he hid it from her and he apologized for it. He then explains to Kat that his mother worked in a pleasure house, that she was granted more freedom than most because of who she was, and because rich men would pay more money to, have sex with a woman with silver hair. He tells Kat that his mother used to tell him that he was no different than her brother's boys, Viserys and Daemon, but that he was ashamed of her. He tells her that he tried to make his way up with his own hands, but that he could not protect her, and that he could not keep their girl alive, but that now they would never want again, that if he claimed a dragon, they would make her a lady. Now, Kat explains to Hugh that she doesn't care to be a lady, and neither does she want to be a widow. But Hugh explains that he has to do something. And in the next scene, we basically see Hugh and scores of other Targaryen bastards headed for the boats in the bay. We also see Ulf there as well, as Alan helps them onto the longboats and shows them towards the fishing vessels that are parked further out into the water. So look, we see from the scene with Ulf that he is unsure about his parentage, even though in earlier episodes we saw that he would tell anyone who would listen that he was half-brother to Daemon and Viserys Targaryen, that he would let people buy him drinks and toast to him in taverns of King's Landing. But now that his parentage presents him with this opportunity, a dangerous one, to be sure, one that could get him killed. But all of a sudden, he doesn't know if it's true. And that's dirty work if you ask me. But okay, Ulf, I get it, right? I know how it is. But we see that he basically got peer pressured into going to Dragonstone. So that kind of tells me how he will end up claiming Silverwing, that it's likely to be more of a happy accident than him actually stepping forward and claiming something that he believes to be rightfully his. Now, as for Hugh, on the other hand, we learn something much more important about him, that he is the bastard son of Sarah Targaryen. And if you don't know who that is, she is the daughter of Jaehaerys and Alysanne Targaryen, brother and sister, by the way. Now, Jaehaerys is the dude that was sitting on the throne in Harrenhal in the very first scene of season 1, basically the prologue. And, Sarah Targaryen was basically excommunicated by her father for being a slutty McSusie, and she ends up in a pleasure house in Lys. The fact that Hugh knows exactly who his connection to the Targaryens is makes Hugh an exceptionally interesting character for a few reasons. Now, one, the fact that he claims Vermithor, his grandfather's dragon, I think is especially ironic, seeing as how, his grandfather, basically sent his mom away. But it's also predictable in the way of storytelling. And then two, his ancestry and even that of Ulf's put them both kind of on the same level as Jaehaerys as it pertains to their particular claim to the throne. With all three of them being bastards with Targaryen blood and now dragons. And this is why Jaehaerys has such an issue with what Rhaenyra is doing as it pertains to the sowing of the seeds. Anyway, from there we see Alicent approaching a lake, still in the Kingswood, still alone. She strips down to some sort of sleeping gown and walks out into the water. Once she gets out there, she just kind of floats there, treads water, staring up at the sky, no doubt contemplating her circumstances. And after a while, she just turns back and swims back to the shore. And these scenes with Alicent, as far as this episode goes, they aren't really worth a whole lot. We really could have done without him because I don't know. The way I see it, the scene of her retiring to the tent and the scene of her treading water, in the lake. I just don't see where they really added very much to the story here, other than just to give her some screen time. But I digress. Now, from there, we see Rhaenyra on her balcony watching the Targaryen bastards arrive on Dragonstone. Now, inside the castle, as Rhaenyra arrives in the library to meet them, her spot is blown up by the Dragon Keeper as he berates her in High Valyrian. He explains that what she is doing is an abomination, that she sent an Andor before a dragon and that judgment was delivered, but that now she has sent for more. Rhaenyra explains that Ser Darkling was the blood of the dragon. The Dragon Keeper claims that what she is doing is blasphemy, that he was no dragon lord, and that neither are the people she sent for. Rhaenyra explains, and yet the gods have set them before us. The Dragon Keeper remarks to Rhaenyra that she has set them before herself. He goes on to explain the dragons are sacred, the last magic of old Valyria in this sad world. They are not playthings for the games of men. Our order will take no part in this. And at that point, the Dragon Keeper and the rest of the frat all leave the room. Rhaenyra then takes a deep breath before addressing the dragon seeds. She tells them, I used to think I knew what it was to claim a dragon, but I understand now that what I thought I knew is ash in the wind. Perhaps it is blood, or worth, or perhaps something else. Each of you has left behind a life to answer this call, a life to which you might never return. If you survive, you will be transformed. No man or woman can face a dragon and be otherwise. Some of you may welcome the prospect of change, even death, given the alternatives: privation, starvation, war. This is our purpose, to end those hardships, for you, for your kin, for all the realm. With these 2 dragons added to our number, the enemy will have no choice but to give way, and peace will be restored. Suffering will be ended, and without bloodshed, God's willing. The dragon named Vermithor is the largest in the world after Vhagar, and perhaps the most fierce. He is called the Bronze Fury. We will go to him now. Rhaenyra then walks towards the Dragon Mount before stopping and turning to the dragon seeds once more, stating, May the gods bless you. May the odds be ever in your favor. She then turns and leads the group out to the platform. And look, this was a nice monologue. It was a nice speech, especially given the fact that she just got read for absolute filth by the Dragon Keeper in front of all the dragon seeds. But I mean, I guess, look, by the time this is over with, most of them will be dead, so it don't even really matter. Plus, they don't know High Valyrian, so I guess they don't know exactly what was said. But this is the point of no return here for Rhaenyra. And though I still think this is the height of stupidity for her character, I have to admit I've been looking forward to seeing this sowing of the seeds play out since the season started. So Rhaenyra walks the dragon seeds out onto the platform, and then she herself walks out to the edge before turning and facing the dragon seeds. She calls forth Vermithor and High Valyrian as Hugh Hammer and the others look on. The dragon eventually shows up, growling and then roaring. Rhaenyra tells him to be calm before finally commanding him to serve. She reaches out her hand and touches the dragon near his nose, and the dragon does indeed calm down. Rhaenyra then turns to the dragon seeds and asks, Who among you would be first? A no-name appears from the crowd and walks cautiously towards the dragon. And you always know what that means. Rhaenyra then tells the group that she has nothing more to tell them and that it must be the dragon who speaks. And then she, Baelor, Sir Marbrand, Adam of Hull, Massaria, and her queen's guardsmen all exit the platform for their safety. The dragon stares down at a no-name Targaryen bastard and he looks up at it, seemingly terrified. I mean, of course. The dragon surveys the entire group before retreating again ever so slightly. Now, the no-name Targaryen finally reaches out his hand, still very much afraid. And it's at that moment that Vermithor lights up nearly the entire group. Barbecue chicken. Now, Oath tries to run, but he is knocked off the platform, to the earth down below. It felt like it was a pretty, long drop, but okay. Hugh was able to get off the platform safely, but still has the dragon to contend with after the fact. Now, after most of the dragon seeds have been burned to a crisp and and basically, turn into a bucket of chicken. Ulf comes to and immediately hides against the platform, hoping that the dragon will not see him. Now Hugh hides on the other side, trying to find a route to escape. Now Hugh makes a run for it, and he happens across a woman, and the two of them try to hide behind a large rock as Vermithor eats several other individuals. He liked the flats. Finally, Hugh and the woman stand up and make a break for it. Now, Vermithor sees them, and at that point, Hugh pushes the woman out of the way just in time for her to avoid being eaten as Vermithor kind of lunges down at the pair of them. Now, as the dragon finally corners the woman, Hugh puts his hands up and yells at the beast, causing it to turn in his direction as the woman escapes back into the castle. I know that's right. You better get on before you get spit on. Hugh then stands before the dragon, yelling up at it, kind of like Jon did with dead Viserion, was it? At the Battle of Winterfell. And that's when the dragon, unexpectedly bends his neck to Hugh. As Rhaenyra looks on from another one of her balconies. Boy, it's balconies all over these castles, but and then next, we see Ulf, who, made a run for it while all the chaos was going on, running deeper and deeper into the dragon mount with a torch in hand. When he finally happens across the dragon's nest and accidentally steps on a clutch of eggs as Silverwing lay sleeping in the corner. The dragon wakes and it slowly approaches Ulf's position, even though Ulf's back is turned at the moment. So he hears the dragon growl and he turns and is frightened by the beast as it nudges him to the ground multiple times with her nose. Now Ulf falls down onto his back and he closes his eyes, trembling, seemingly prepared for death. But after a few moments, he opens them and he laughs as he realizes that Silverwing is indeed his. And as I said before, this is one of the moments I waited for this season. And I can honestly say it was a pretty good group of scenes. There was carnage, of course. But what I liked was the difference in how the two dragon riders claimed their dragons. Even though, Ulf's claiming of his dragon was kind of somewhat in line with how Adam claimed his. But anyway, Hugh was more courageous in achieving his goal, whereas Ulf's situations, like I said, was more like that of Adam's, wherein the dragon scared the crap out of him, but really ultimately never really meant him any harm. And I look forward to seeing how the dragon seeds claim their dragons, how that will inform the kind of riders they will be in the episodes to come. Probably not really until season 3, though, but, we'll see. Yeah, one more episode to go, right? So next, we see Aemon, Lord Wilde, Grandmaster Orwell, and Lord Larys having a council meeting at now a half-empty table. And Lord Wilde tells Aemon that Lord Ormond Hightower makes slow progress and that there is great concern that his host is threatened on 2 fronts by armies allied with House Beesbury. And you remember Lord Beesbury got killed at the end of last season. And that's what all the ruckus is about there. But that Prince Darren's dragon Tessarion has taken to wing so that he might join the fight soon, and that when he does, the Hightower host will be unstoppable. Now at that point, the members of the council can hear the growing noise coming from outside in the street, and eventually someone yells dragon. Aemon jumps up from his chair and walks out to the balcony where he sees Ulf atop Silverwing's back, flying over King's Landing for all to see. Now the guards atop the walls of the city attempt to shoot the dragon down with the giant scorpions that were built by Hugh Hammer and his and other blacksmiths, in order to protect the city from dragons. Now Aemon rushes out of the Red Keep and he jumps on horseback, telling one of the guards to open the gate. He gallops with haste out to a clearing where Vhagar awaits. He climbs onto the dragon's back and he chases Ulf through the skies back towards Dragonstone. Now, once he gets over Blackwater Bay, he finds Rhaenyra waiting for him with all of her new dragons with their dragon riders at her back, forcing Aemon to turn around and head back to King's Landing. And that's where the episode cuts to black. And this scene was basically Rhaenyra trying to flex her might in the hopes that, I believe, Aemon might be scared enough of the power shift to sue for peace. This leads me to believe that she likely sent Ulf to fly over King's Landing with the very purpose of getting Aemon to see that she now has a fleet of dragons at her disposal. The Air Force has grown, right? This is what she meant by ending the war without bloodshed. Now, of course, we know from Westerosi history, Game of Thrones, Fire and Blood, that this didn't work. Now, in conclusion, with one episode left this season, I think this season of House of the Dragon has been more character-driven than action-driven. And, don't get me wrong, Game of Thrones was a lot like this, at times. But we typically had big pitched battles in the penultimate episodes of the season. You could almost set your watch to it. The battle for the wall, the battle of Blackwater Bay, the battle of the bastards, and even, Daenerys attacking King's Landing, were all penultimate episodes in the Game of Thrones, lineage of episodes. And, we don't get that here. And it's starting to look like we won't get that in the final episode of the season either, as, most season finales in the Game of Thrones type of shows tend to be more made for resolution than anything else. So that's kind of what I'm expecting to get next episode. Now, I'm going to keep my comments short in this particular section because something tells me that I'll have a whole lot more to say after the season finale airs. So I'll just save any rants and raves that I have for the next video. As I said earlier in the video, I do think we managed to get a pretty good showing at the Sowing of the Seeds. And for now, as far as this particular episode is concerned as a standalone, I'll just be satisfied with that. But what do you guys think? Did you enjoy the penultimate episode of the season, even though we didn't get no bamming? What's your favorite storyline so far? Let me know in the comments. And for those of you that might be new to the channel, be sure to like and share this video. If you really like the content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video. Also, be sure to go and check out themaskscreenwriter.com for more television and film reviews and info on my upcoming film projects. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got screenplays to write. And I'll catch y'all in the next video.